Welcome back. In the previous steps, we added the form elements and we tied them up to the state of the component. In this step, let's focus on the login button click. When the login button is clicked, we would want to take action. We would want to check whether the username and password is right. And based on it, either show a logged in successful message or show an error. How do we do that? Let's see that in this specific step. Let's start with creating a onChange event. Is it onChange event or onClick event? It should be the onClick event, right? So on click of the button, I would want to call a method. So this dot, I'll say login clicked. So login clicked. As soon as I create a method in the class, one of the important things is to make sure that we bind it, right? So this dot login clicked is equal to this dot login click dot bind dot this. Now we have the login clicked. Let's do a console.log this dot state. Let's see if everything ties up fine. Login. Yep, I can see the username and password. That's cool. So based on the username and password values, I would want to be able to show two different messages. Let's look at them right now. So let's say I would want to show a message which is invalid credentials, or the other message we would want to be able to show is login successful. So these are the two messages that we would want to be able to show based on the username and password entered. If you go to the form right now, you can actually see both of them. But what we want to do is conditionally show them. We don't want to show them always. We only want to show them in specific scenarios. How do we do that? For now, to keep things simple, we would want to start with hard-coded validation. Let's assume that the only valid username and password combination is in 28 minutes and dummy. So what we want to do is if username is equal to in 28 minutes, it's 3 is equal to, in Java we use 2 is equal to, in JavaScript it's 3 is equal to is the recommended approach. Username dummy, and password is equal to dummy, right? If these two are right, but where are the username and password present? They are present inside this state, right? So the actual current values of the username and password are present in this dot state. So if this dot state dot username is equal to in 28 minutes and this dot state dot password is equal to dummy, what do we want to do? For now, let's just do a console.log. Console.log successful. Let's say else console.log failed. Let's comment out this log. So now when I click login, failed because in 28 minutes and empty password. I will enter dummy. You can see that I entered dummy as the value, and when I click login, successful. Thing is, we are printing the state before in the handle change event before the state is updated. That's why it's showing it that way. Let's comment this out. It's no longer needed anyway. So in 28 minutes, dummy. When I say login, it's successful. When I enter any other password and say login, failed. That's cool. So we are doing simple validation in here. What we want to do is we would want to trigger these messages based on it. To be able to trigger these messages based on it, what we need to do is we need to add these to the state. So what I'll do is I'll add a couple of more variables to the state. So is or has login failed. So has login failed, initially it would be false. And the last one is show success message. And I'll put it to false as well. What should we do when login is clicked? If this is the thing, what should we do? Let's remove the console.log, put it back here. If it's successful, what do we need to do? Is we need to update this state, right? So what should we do in this state? I'll take this thing which is present in here, this dot set state. What should I do? Show successful message should have a value of true. Else, what should we do? Login has failed. If login has failed, then I should not show this success message, but I should show the error message. Has login failed is true. So what we are doing is based on whether the thing is successful or not, we are actually setting the status. Actually, what I can also do is actually here, has login failed is now false. Because once it's success, has login failed is false, right? So let's see what would happen now. Now, if I go to the page and click login, I still see both the messages. Why? Because we have not really added conditions around this yet. It's around invalid credentials and login successful. We have not really added conditions yet. How do we add conditions around this? One of the easiest ways to add conditions is by saying function in valid credentials, and we'll pass props to it. Actually, I should create this outside the component. So let's go ahead and move outside and say function show invalid credentials and props. What we'll do in here is if props, what we'll do is we'll pass has login failed as a property to this specific thing. So what I can do is props dot login failed. If in this specific property, if has login failed is true, then what we'll do is we'll return this credentials back. Return invalid credentials. Otherwise, return null. I don't need the semicolons. So over here, instead of this, I would want to use show invalid credentials. Actually, I can end the tag in here directly. And what I'll do is I'll create a property called has login failed. And I'll pick the value for it from this state. So this dot state dot has login failed. So show invalid credentials only if has login failed is true. I can create a similar message for the other thing. Before that, let's check if this is working. So now the invalid message is not being shown. And if I enter right user ID and password, the invalid message is not being shown. However, if I enter invalid ID and password, you can see that the invalid credentials is being shown, because we added now a if condition. This invalid credentials will be shown only if the has login failed in this state has a value of true. So you can pause the video in here and try and do something very similar with login successful. So it's very simple. We are creating a function component actually. So show login success message props, and what we can do is if props dot, we'll use the same thing that we had earlier, show success message, return this thing which is present in here, return the login successful message, otherwise return null back. And now I can use the show login success message over here. Oops, let me get this right, and now I can say oops, show login success message and show success message. I would want to get it from this state, so is equal to this dot state dot show success message and close the parenthesis. Isn't that cool? Now I can remove all this stuff and login, right values login successful, wrong values invalid credentials. In this step, what we looked at is actually implementing the logic for the login button. So we added the on-click event, and we actually added a couple of messages based on whether the hard-coded authentication that we are performing is successful or not. We'll talk about a lot more in the next step. Until then, bye-bye. Welcome back. In this step, I'll show you a tip about how you can simplify this kind of component creation for simple ifs. All that we have is a simple if, and we had to create a functional component to show this. And that's little tricky, right? That's a little complex. So how do we avoid it? Let's see that in this specific step. Let's go to the JavaScript console and type in true and a value. So true, and I'm giving a, let's say, a string, true and a test string. What would happen? You can see that it is returning test string back. Let's say false and test string. So I'm actually in the console of your browser. You can get there by doing a right click inspect and going to the console, and I'm trying some JavaScript in here. So if I do a false and test string, what it's returning is false. It's not actually returning the test string back. So let's say I'll create a simple variable, let show something is equal to true. So if I say show something and test string, what would it return? Because show something is true, it would return test string back. Now, I'll change the value of show something actually to false. Let's make it false. And let's execute the same thing. Show something and test string. Aha! It is returning false. The thing which we are realizing in here is AND operator. If the left hand side is a Boolean operator, it will return this value as is if the condition is true. If show something is true, it would return the string as is. Otherwise, it returns false back. And that's a great opportunity with JSX. So over here, instead of doing show invalid credentials is equal to this and all that stuff, all that we can do is we can insert a JavaScript expression and say this dot state dot has login failed, and you can put in whatever you would want to return back. So you can say this expression. So any JSX is like an expression. So everything in a JSX compiles to JavaScript code, and it's like a JavaScript expression. So you can say this dot has login failed and invalid credentials, and now I can comment this code out. So I'm going to do a JSX command. So / and include it within curly braces. Cool. And let's see if this works as it is. Login, invalid credentials. Invalid credentials. If I do dummy and give the right values, login successful. Isn't that cool? So this, while it looks complex, right? One of the reasons why we are introducing this in a separate step on its own is because this is little tricky to understand, right? So this code looks very, very complex, but what it does is very simple. If this condition is true, then show this. As simple as that. So let's do the same thing now for the success message as well. Show success message. Let's comment this stuff out /* and include within curly braces, and it's not invalid credentials, but it should be login successful. Login successful. So now I don't really need these two methods. So control / or command / to comment this stuff out. And now you'd see login successful, login invalid credentials. So what we are doing is now we have simplified all the logic for validation inside our code. In this step, we learned an important thing. If we wanted to show a specific div on a specific condition, then you can actually use this AND operator. I'll recommend you to play around with the AND operator a lot more. I'll see you in the next step. And until then, bye-bye. Welcome back. When we enter the right user ID and password and click login button, what do we want to happen? We would want to go to the welcome page. But what we are showing is just a message right now. In this step, let's create the welcome component and start the journey towards actually navigating towards the welcome page. Let's get started with the welcome component. So creating the welcome component should be simple, right? So all that I need to say is class welcome component extends comp component and implement the render method. So render and say return div welcome in 28 minutes. I'm hard coding the username for now. We'll fix that a little later. So now, will this component appear? Nope, it's not appearing. What do I need to do to make the component appear? I can do this, right? In 28 minutes, the login component and the welcome component, both of them are being shown. But what we would need to do is we don't really want to show both of them. We would want to only show one of them based on the current situation. How can we do that? That's where a framework called React Router comes into picture. React Router helps us to route from one component to another component. You can define, when I type in a URL localhost 3000/login, I want to show the login component. When I type in a URL localhost 3000/welcome, I would want to show the welcome component. And also it allows us to redirect from, when I click login and the user ID is successful, I would want to show the welcome component. So all that is possible through the router. The first thing that I would need to do to be able to use the router is actually add it to our project. React is just the view library. It does not come with all the features to build a real web application, and that's where React Router comes in and gives us the features to route from one page to another. I have the application up and running from the browser. This is where we did the npm start. What I'll do is I'll kill this, Control-C, and now over here I'll say npm add React Router DOM. So that's the library. The name of the library is React Router. We are going to use it in the browser, so it's React Router DOM. We want to add that specific thing in. If we go to the project and we look at the package.json, you'd see that right now there are only 3 dependencies for this specific project. And now, as soon as I execute that command, what is happening is npm is trying to download that from the npm repository. It would download the React Router DOM and all its transitive dependencies, including React Router. So you would see that all of them would be downloaded into the node modules, and at the end of it, you would also see that it is added into the package.json as a dependency. You can see that it's now added in React Router DOM. We are going to use the 4.3.1 version of it, and you can see that it's added in this specific version of React Router DOM. Now that we have React Router DOM in our package, we can start using it in our application. Before we can actually use it, we would need to import a few classes. So we would need to import a few things from React Router DOM. What are the things that we would want to import? There's something called browser router and a route. Now, why do we need this? One of the things I'll do is I'll rename browser router. I would want to call this router because that's typically how it is used. So I'll say import browser router as router and route from React Router DOM. Let's make this full screen so that we can see the complete thing. Now, how do we use the router? The way we can use the router is inside the place where we would want to render it. What do we want to do? Certain situations we want to show login component, certain situations we would want to show the welcome component. So over here we need to add the router. So I would want to use the router and define the routes. So if the path is, let's say, something, then the component to use is something. If the path is something else, the component to use is something else as well. What we'll do for now is we'll comment this JSX comment. So it's a little tricky. Let's comment it out, and over here let's use login component as the first one, welcome component as the second one, and for this we'll give the URL /login, and for this we'll give the URL /welcome. Let's see if this loads up fine in the browser. Oops, it's actually not loading up at all. When I refresh it, it's actually crashing. The reason is because we stopped it, we added the dependency, and at that particular point in time, we stopped the application. So let's do an npm start again to kick it off again. Okay, it's starting it up again. I expect to see an error when it launches up. I just want to demo it. Okay, it errors out. It says a router may have only one child element. So one of the things is inside the router you can only have one child element, just like in JSX. So over here we have two routes. So what I'll do is I'll include it within a fragment. So all that I need to do is empty nodes added in here, and I'll push the routes a little down. Let's see what would happen now. Cool. Localhost 3000 doesn't show anything. Why? Because we have not defined the default route yet. So what I'll do is I'll see what happens when I type in /login. It shows the login page. What happens when I show the /welcome? It shows the welcome page. What happens when I say /welcome? Let's see what would happen if I say /welcome/ something else. It continues to show the welcome page. So any route starting with /login would show the login component. Any route starting with /welcome would show the welcome component. Let's now add the fact that even the default /route, I would want it to go to the login component as well. What's happening in here? When I type in localhost 3000 welcome this, it's also showing the login component. Because /welcome/fsdjfl, it matches this route and it matches this route. So it's actually showing both. So we can prevent the login component to be shown by saying exact. So only when it's /exact, then do that. So now only the welcome component is shown when I say localhost 3000. Login component is shown when I say localhost 3000/login. Login component. In this step, what we did is we created the welcome component quickly, and we also quickly added in the routing stuff. So we are now able to type in a URL in the browser and go to a specific thing. So we were able to say /login and go to login, /welcome and go to welcome component. There are still a few things here and there that we need to work on, like security, look and feel and stuff like that. But those are things which would work in the next steps. Until then, bye-bye. Welcome back. In the previous step, we implemented the basic routing. However, when we go to login page and we enter username and password in 28 minutes dummy and click login, I'm still showing just the login successful. I'm not really redirecting to the welcome page. In this step, let's see how you can redirect to the welcome page. This is a very short step actually. So let's quickly do that.